Hey everybody, Dr. Kramer, Hope Upper Cervical Spine Center, here with another episode of the Spinal Corner. And today I wanted to bring to your attention a very, very important process that you go through as a patient in your navigation of your health journey. And this is the idea that symptoms by themselves are not sufficient for clinical intervention. You see, most of the time, what ends up happening in our paradigm is that we may get a symptom, right? You may get a headache, you may have a little bit of neck issues going on, maybe some hand numbness going on, something along those lines. And it's going to drive a thought process for you in which you may go to CVS, get your local over-the-counter, maybe some Tylenol, some Motrin, maybe something along those lines. That may not work. You're going to end up at your PCP. PCP may give you something stronger, right? You know the drill that we're going to go through. However, I want to talk about this from a chiropractic perspective because this is also very, very similar. If you are treating chiropractic as the doctor or as the patient as simply an attempt to eradicate symptoms, you are going to greatly underserve your patient, and your patient is going to be greatly underwhelmed, you patient, by this promise. And the reason is very, very simple. It is because the scope of the chiropractic adjustment is designed to address the neurological insult to the system. This is part of a complex that we call, which is the Vertebral Subluxation Complex. And in this complex, we understand a triangle that is made in which your neurological system, your immune system, and your endocrine system, so this is going to be your nerves, your immunity, and your hormone regulation, are all deeply intertwined on a three-legged stool. And when this system is compromised, over time, you will generate a structural deficiency in conjunction with a neurophysiological system crash. This will generate for you the symptomatic presentation that you have. Now, when we decide to deliver an intervention in the form of a chiropractic adjustment, we cannot base that off of how you feel that day. If we start chasing the symptom, we are going to lose control of your case. You will be greatly underwhelmed by the results that you get inside of our offices. And then you will also decide to say, hey man, this doesn't really work. So with that being said, how we make our gauge needs to be objective in application. And what we have found over 100 years of research data is that thermographic evaluation is the gold standard for assessing the integrity of the three-legged stool, neuroimmune endocrine, right? And so what I have behind me here is what we call a computerized infrared thermography. It is called Titron. And what this does for us is it gives us the ability to real time use objective data to evaluate the integrity of the neurological system, right? That is what we are trying to do on a day in and day out basis. And what you'll see on this is going to be kind of hard to see, but there's two different sets of lines. You're going to have, let me move my hand here, we're going to have that pink line right there, and then we're going to have the curvy line right here. What we discuss inside of the chiropractic paradigm is that the presence of vertebral subluxation is an interruption in consistent neurological, physiological function. That is going to be the curvy blue line that you see on these three films. When that becomes repeatable over time, it tells us that this issue is definitely related to your structure and that imaging is warranted to figure out how to deliver the best adjustment possible to create the straight line that is present and sustain the straight line. What we learn from this is that regardless of your symptom, regardless of the intervention applied, if we generate that straight line with a specific chiropractic adjustment, it will eliminate the vertebral subluxation complex. Then your body will start the process of healing. So watch this. In the world, let's use headaches, right? There's a many reasons why you may have a headache. You could be hungover, could be dehydrated, you could be having a brain bleed, a brain tumor, could be having an allergic reaction, could have a barometric pressure drop, could have a weather change, could have let's go with what's happening right now, ragweed, all these things going on, right? However, if we solely say, hey, we're going to say you have a headache, I'm going to deliver an adjustment, right? That doesn't really give us clinical data, right? Because you can go out and take some Tylenol, your headache will go away. But if your headache keeps on coming back, clinical data, it tells us, hey, maybe there is a reason to suspect that there is a vertebral subluxation going on. We need to objectively evaluate for that, right? Simply jumping to the intervention without an objective analysis is not clinically relevant, right? That is a problem. That is not doing due diligence for serving you, the patient. So what must happen on our end is that we have to objectively assess for the need for a clinical intervention, regardless of your symptomatic presentation, in the form of a thermographic evaluation. Simply palpating your spine, right? Coming in and doing that, looking at your little feetsies down here, that is not sufficient data, right? That is very low-level clinical data. It doesn't paint the big picture, right? We need to have more objective data that allows for critical evaluation for when a vertebral subluxation is present, and then also when a chiropractic adjustment has been delivered. Because if it is present, it will be the curvy line. If you have delivered an adjustment, it will be the straight line at the right time in the right place. Then this is where the kicker comes in. When we manage the case, if you have a straight line, that means there is no neurophysiological disruption, which means your nervous system, your immune system, and your hormonal system are doing exactly what they need to do. You may have a headache from hell because of that, but as your body heals from the inside out, the likelihood of you developing a quality of health expression without headaches over a long period of time is actually amplified because we know that your body is doing what it needs to do, free of the neurophysiological deficit that is caused by a vertebral subluxation complex. So what is the takeaway today? Symptoms alone do not dictate the need for clinical intervention. Symptoms are a subjective way of saying, hey, there is something wrong inside of my body. I need to find out what the cause is. When we look for the cause, we need to use a thermographic evaluation in conjunction with an imaging series, whether that be X-ray or cone beam CT. We need to marry the two together and say, hey, this is the clinical presentation. When patient has a vertebral subluxation, it means that her misalignment or his misalignment is this direction. And if we apply a chiropractic adjustment based upon that misalignment that we see on an X-ray, we can evaluate for resolution of normal neurophysiology with a graph. And then we can say that, hey, patient, you are going to get healthy over time. Because the longer your body runs a cycle of normal neurophysiology, the more likelihood that your immune system and endocrine system are going to also be amplified, generating for you a better overall expression of health. Don't let symptoms dictate your care. Don't let your doctor make clinical decisions based upon your symptomatic presentation. Use objective data for better results, better clinical outcomes, and for long-term expression of health. That's today's Upper Cervical Corner. I'm Dr. Kramer. Any questions? Drop them in the comments.